Gospel Spotlight, we just heard the Lord's Prayer by Reverend Carl Bentley and the Carl Bentley Singers. Now, how and why did you get together the Reverend Carl Bentley and the Carl Bentley Singers with all the other things you were involved in?
Okay, when I first started recording, or when I released my first recording in 1978, the title was Carl Bentley and the Carl Bentley Singers. And this was one of my brother's suggestions, because he said, in the event that you want to branch out into other kinds of music, then if you put Reverend in front of your name, it would just completely preclude you going into other markets. Well, this time around I decided I'm not going into any other markets. I've already had an opportunity to explore the nightclub world and play those 11 to 4 shows and then get up and go to church the next morning smelling like smoke, and that's just not me. You know, in fact, many times when I was out there playing in the clubs, the Lord would just play the Holy Spirit would put such a strong conviction on me. I'd say to myself, Lord, what am I doing here? You know, how did I end up in this place? And I couldn't wait to get back in church. And then finally, when I went into the ministry, I understood that maybe God just wanted me to see what was out there so that I would have a framework for my preaching. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't need that scene. I don't need to go back into that type of working environment. There's plenty of opportunity within the gospel music field for a serious artist to get the work that's needed. So this is why Reverend Carl Bentley is on the album this time. With the Carl Bentley Singers, the way that ends up going, every time I record, I seem to be in a different city. So I will gather together background singers to sing the background on the particular recording that I'm doing.
Okay.
And with that type of a name, I can use 200 singers, I can use 4 singers, I can use 2 singers, 6 singers, or whatever. Carl Bentley Singers is a fluid type of group. At one time I used teenagers from the various high schools in Newport News. This recent recording, I used young adults who are in their early 20s, well, under 30. And now I'm thinking in terms of making another transition, going into the markets, the various markets, and because of the type of preaching engagements that I get now, I think I need to include some older adults who have a more viable testimony, and to include people who can lend support to the type of ministry that I must provide for the people and for those who will come out to worship and fellowship. So next time around, I think the Carl Bentley Singers might have a different sound because of the quality of background singers that will be included and incorporated into the plan of things.
All right. Now, at your church, where you're pastoring, do you have choirs there? Are you the minister of music as well as pastor?
No, thank God. My choirs at this time are under the capable direction of Sister Carrie Garnett. She's a teacher in Caroline County, and she does an excellent job with our choirs. And she, because of being in a nurturing profession, that type of nurturing just diffuses over into her work with the choirs. And right now we have 2 very good choirs. We have a senior choir, and they're doing a fantastic job. We have a young adult choir, and they will be, as a matter of fact, worshiping or participating in a worship service this afternoon for our hospitality club. There are plans to organize a church male chorus, and there is a plan on the drawing board to organize what I'm going to call an adjunct choir. And that's for people who are living in the community. They're not full members of the church, but they worship with us under watch care.
Oh, I see.
And so that they would have an opportunity to participate in the auxiliaries of the church without, becoming full members, then we'll let it be an adjunct choir, and that will open up the door of opportunity for them to exercise their gifts.
That's great. What's the membership at your church?
Our cumulative membership is 153 members.
Okay.
Our active membership is somewhat less than that. As is the case in all churches.
In all churches, you're right.
But the faithful few carry on the work of the Lord.
All right.
And I thank the Lord for them.
Now, how does being a recording artist, how do you get that to interact with you of being a pastor? Because being a pastor is a lot of responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
It is time-consuming, a lot of commitments.
That's true. Well, this is a new vista for me because several things happened all at one time.
Mm-hmm.
For example, when I was accepted at Howard Divinity School, I also was hired as the pastor of the church, so immediately there were two new activities that I had to fit into my schedule. I wanted to get this album on the market before school opened here in September, so that I would not have to be back and forth in transactions. I made a lot of trips to Philadelphia this summer. I made a lot of trips to New York trying to coordinate everything, get it all together. Now that the album is out, it frees me so that I can do my pastoral work. Fortunately, Class International Productions is handling all of the legwork, and they're doing all of the promotion now, and that type of I don't have to worry with those aspects of it. Okay. This frees me to do my pastoral work.
All right. And what's BME Records?
Okay. BME Records stands for Bentley Music Enterprises. It's an artist-owned label that I created 8 years ago when I made my first recording. And at that time, I thought that I might go into the vista of recording other people. Mm-hmm. Well, the Lord had other plans for my activities, and I have not been able to record anybody else. As a matter of fact, it was all I could do to get myself recorded this time around. But BME Records is my own personal label, and I'm hoping in the eventual future to be able to record other people and to help others who want to get started in the recording industry.
All right. And what other plans do you have for the future? I mean, that's just one I know of many things. Anything that you care to share with our listeners?
Well, since my eyes have not seen and my ears have not heard and it hasn't even entered into my heart what God has prepared for me, I'm planning to graduate in May and to just continue pastoring the church and to continue teaching school and see if I can live a low-key life.
Low-key? Did you really say low-key? You didn't seriously mean that.
Unless, of course, the Lord has other plans. And, of course, I'll always avail myself to whatever God has in store.
Well, to those, much is given, much is required.
I found that to be true.
All right. So much for being low-keyed. I think that's the answer to that one there. But thus far, where have you been able to take your musical ministry?
Wherever I go to preach, and to various churches in the area. What has happened basically is that I haven't gotten a lot of exposure because I haven't had anything to expose me, and I don't like to do a lot of programs on Sunday afternoon because I burned myself out years ago. When I was living in the Hampton Roads area and working with those 7 choirs, I found myself going to one church at 3 in the afternoon to do an A and B selection, and then having to go to another church at 5 and do an A and B selection, and then get to church on Sunday night for evening service, and by the next morning I was just completely worn out. And so because of the type of involvements and activities that I found would happen if I allowed it to happen, I generally don't do a lot of going out unless it's a preaching engagement and I can take the members of the congregation with me. And basically, that's the way it's been. Before I got my pastorate, my only exposure in the D.C. area would be with the mass choir from Mount Joy, and the only time the mass choir would go out would be if Reverend Porter had to preach. Then I would accompany him and direct his choir for him. But as far as going out as an artist, I haven't done that an awful lot here in D.C.
Question that opened up a little can here. With a new album out, how do you plan to promote it if you're not really going out on engagements? Or are you really saying
back to
you need to clarify? Right, you need to clarify for me. How are you going to handle this being a recording artist and not really?
Okay. Now, as an artist, a bona fide artist, the whole it becomes a completely new ball game. It becomes a completely new ball game. It means that I have to restructure the boundaries of my musical vocation. There is the potential for conflict. For example, when I have a preaching engagement and my artist management also wants to book me to appear somewhere. That's something that God and I haven't quite worked out. But of course, I'm sure that all things will work together. And I'm really willing to trust the Lord on it. I'm sure He would not have brought me this far to land me in a mess.
All right. Well, on that note, maybe we should hear power, huh? All right. We will take a musical break, and we will come back and have closing remarks by Reverend Carl Bentley. And we have Mr. Frank Malone, who's here and ready to tell you more about to tell you about the anniversary celebration of Howard University Gospel Choir. And also we have our telephonic interview with Evangelist Shirley Caesar that's coming up at 11:30. And I have some music from many years ago that I would like to play before I actually speak with her. I love that old sound. The country girl comes out in me. I love that old back home sound. Right now we will hear from Reverend Carl Bentley and the Carl Bentley Singers from the album Victory. We will hear the song Power, and we would love to hear from you. All right? The number 364-6092, 364-6092. Give us a call and speak with Reverend Carl Bentley to encourage him to continue with his musical ministry and to encourage him in his pastorship. And maybe when you're visiting that area, you would like to stop in and say hello, all right, to be a part of the morning service, afternoon service, or weekday service, Bible study, or whatever they have there, all right? We'll learn more about what goes on in his church during the course of the week. Right now, let's listen to Power as you call on 364-6092.